All right, well, let's get started. Today is the January 23rd, 2024 Planning Commission meeting. Welcome, and I hope everybody's had a good holidays. Welcome to 2024. Let's start with a call to order.
Yes, Gregory Wolf,
Here.
David Poderis,
Here.
Kelly Rast,
Present.
Brad Miller is absent, Lindsay Grisay,
Here.
Fred Starrett is absent, Steve McGank,
Here.
Tim Orick.
Present by Zoom.
Thank you, Tim. Leslie Hind. Present. Craig Connell is absent, Andrew Logan.
Present on Zoom.
Thank you. And Kevin Hogan is absent, and we do have a quorum.
Wonderful. I think we'd start with any public comment.
I'll go ahead with the Zoom statement if that's
Oh,
okay.
sure. Go ahead.
This meeting is now being recorded in the board hearing room with Planning Commission members attending in person. There's also an option for virtual attendance on Zoom webinar. For Zoom participants wishing to speak, please use the raise hand function in the Zoom app at the start of the agenda item on which you desire to comment. Comments will be received from in-person attendees first, followed by Zoom participants. When it is your turn to speak, the moderator will recognize you by the name or phone number used to join the Zoom webinar. Please state your name and the city and state where you reside for the record, followed by your comments. All public speakers will be limited to 2 minutes unless the chair designates a different time period. If you have trouble with Zoom, please call 913-715-9666. Board members, staff, and presenters, please state your name every time you begin talking, and please speak into the microphone so that people attending via Zoom can hear you and your comments can be transcribed for the record. This is a public meeting. We are presenting live and recording the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So this opportunity for members of the public to address the Planning Commission on items which do not appear on the agenda. Are there any members of the public here today or on Zoom?
No, we do not have anyone.
Okay, so hearing none, I'll go ahead and move to the disclosures of conflicts of interest or ex parte communications for any of the commissioners. If you've had off the record conversations regarding any of the items kind of before the board, this would be a time to disclose those. Okay, hearing none, we will move to the agenda. Do any of the commissioners have any additions or deletions from tonight's agenda? Hearing none, can I get a motion to approve the agenda? Or the minutes, I guess, approval?
Madam Chair, this is Greg Wolf. I move to approve the minutes from our December meeting.
Can I get a second?
Steve McGank seconds.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Do we need a roll call vote on that? Not necessary? Okay. All right, so I think the first item on the agenda is the strategic plan and year in review.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Jay Leipzig, the Planning Department. This item is fairly short and brief, and actually my comments this evening will be fairly brief. This might be our shortest meeting of the year, perhaps, but we'll see about that. In your packet is a memorandum, a cover memorandum. It's dated January 17th that has we call it our strategic plan, which basically outlines our year in review. So, and this is kind of a reference document. We have, as we go through the year, as each zoning board meeting is held, we always attach the summary of the case in order, and that will be as part of your Planning Commission packets as well. But then on this annual meeting in January, we present to you the whole year. So what you have is a summary in sequential order of each case that was presented before each zoning board for that year, including the Airport Commission as well. And also we'll have, if the BZA meets or the Board of Zoning Appeals, if they meet, those cases will be before you as well. So it's just a good way to kind of use it as a reference guide. If there are things that you wonder about, or just kind of a brief summary of that case, you have that information before you. So that begins with page is it page 5 in your packet. But really wanted to just focus a little bit about kind of some things that before this planning commission in 2023, including the Northwest Area Plan, which we did quite a bit of work on that. It's been a great year in terms of planning processes. We accomplished a lot of very high profile, high visibility projects on the, for example, that Northwest Area Plan that I just mentioned. This is really the very initial piece of that. I think there'll be quite a bit more discussion about that in the future, especially as we work and move towards the arterial road network review, which is also a secondary piece of that, working with the Public Works Department and their consultant, HNTB. It's been working on compiling data and trip counts in the northwest area of the county. We won't have that information back probably till the end of this year or the beginning of next year. So they're just starting that process. But that is a kind of a key piece of it as we move forward. Many of you have heard of the CARNP, or our Comprehensive Arterial Road Network plan. This data will be used to supplement some of the CARNP information that we have as well. So it's kind of that first step in the analysis of looking at the roadway projects in the western part of the county. We also completed updates to our accessory building regulations and also a lot of record update, which is what we did at our previous meeting, which was approved by the Board of County Commissioners. So those are three major pieces that involve quite a bit of review, quite a bit of research. We also have our annual comprehensive plan review, as well as our airport compatibility plans, which we provided monthly updates to you all on that process. Those will be culminating with, we had a committee of the whole January 3rd, I believe, with the Board of County Commissioners, or it might have been January 4th. January 4th, but then we will have that for action before the Board of County Commissioners on February 22nd. So we're nearly finished. We're just about at the end of that road as we move forward. So that is a huge step. A lot of work was involved in that, and I certainly want to thank Diane Wicklund and Sean for their help, and Michelle Cricks, a former planner that worked with us, is also heavily involved in that project as well. Which that leads me into the future discussion for 2024. The next step would be to update our zoning and subdivision regulations. And this is another major effort. We actually, planning department received funding for this 2 years ago as part of our capital improvements plan. And then because of COVID and the delay in getting the airport plans adopted and completed, that was delayed slightly. So we'd like to begin that process this next year, and you'll hear more about that as we move forward, including the creation of a stakeholders group, as well as we'll have monthly updates on the development of that plan. So it's a major endeavor, but I think it will tie up a lot of loose ends that we have that we've talked about. For example, clarifying the conditional use permit, some of those parameters. Also working with the notification requirements. So many of the things we've talked about over the past year are all as part of that plan too. Previously, we worked with White and Associates. Mark White from Lee Summit, Missouri, is a nationally recognized expert on planning development regulations. He completed an audit of our subdivision regulations, and so we were planning on using that information to kind of help us focus and triage which items we need to address first, which things we need to look at first. So that we do have that background information as well, but then getting input from the public and then from you all as well as we move forward through that. What am I missing? Anything that you both can think of? The other item to note is and a major effort was consolidating our zoning boards. We have consolidated the Southwest and the Northwest zoning board together into the West Consolidated Zoning Board. And then also worked on the development and the adoption of the bylaws for both the zoning boards and the Planning Commission. We also added additional members to the Planning Commission as well, and to that that appointment process was completed this year as well. So forgot about that one. That took quite a bit of time, probably a good 4 months to go through that process as well. So with that, I will open it up for any questions you all might have and would like to find out more information.
I have a couple questions. Kelly Rast. Jay, remind me again when it was last updated, the subdivisions, like what we're going to be working from.
Part of it was 1994.
Okay. So I feel like that's probably important for everybody to know how it has been updated in a long time.
What has happened, Commissioner Jay Leipzig again, is we've updated it periodically, various, like talked about a lot of record changes and that type of thing, but we haven't done a comprehensive overview and a comprehensive update. So when you read the zoning regulations, they're somewhat disjointed,
Mhm.
and this would help kind of organize the text in a more, certainly more user-friendly manner, and update the entire document rather than just kind of a piecemeal as we've had to, which we've been doing the last few years.
Yes, Kelly Rast, I agree with that because one of the snow days I actually sat down, was reading a lot of them, and it is not very cohesive in the ideas and everything. And then would we get a copy of the consultant's recommendations? Is that something that we can have ahead of time to kind of get an overview of what you guys are even starting with and looking at, just to kind of give us a kind of a Cliff Note version? Sometimes I like to see the whole thing, get a full, scope of something, and then see where we go from there.
Yes, Commissioner, I'd be happy to do that. That was presented for the Planning Commission, I believe, 2 years ago. It might have been right before you came on.
Okay, was it before the solar farm stuff?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
then yeah, right before me.
But we'll certainly distribute that again. And then the idea is we create this stakeholders group. We'll also identify and work on an RFP, a request for proposals for a consultant, to bring them on board that will also help us with the writing of that document too. And then we'll have a kickoff meeting before this planning commission as well to kind of talk about the process and to make sure that it's consistent with what you all are thinking, with what we're thinking, and that we're in open communication there.
Okay, perfect. One last question, Kelly Raskin. Is this process going to be similar to like the New Century Air, where you'll put it out into social media for citizens to know and give feedback? Or is it, I'm sure it's probably going to be a smaller deal because the New Century was a lot bigger, but can we expect sort of the same thing, that
Yes.
letting
Commissioner.
people know? And
Great question, Jay Leipzig. We will have a working with social media to post updates on that. We'll also have a portal that will have all of the information on the subdivision regulation update in one place. So it'll be a similar process. We'll provide a monthly update to you at this meeting, hopefully also before the zoning boards too, on the status of that project as we move forward.
okay, do you anticipate like some of the meetings being held like at a high school or something, just to get citizens' feedback? You do? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I don't, or I can't speak on the details in terms of the number of meetings and that process, but yes, there will be probably several meetings. This, I might add too, this is probably a 2 or 3 year process. to
Okay.
update.
That just gives me an idea of the scope of what we're looking at. Okay. Thank you.
All right, any other commissioner questions about the report? Okay, hearing none, should we move on to the director's report?
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. Appreciate the chance. And I think I might have covered some of the items from the in my my director's report as well. One item to note is our American Planning Association has a national conference every year, and it's usually it rotates around in different cities. Historically, we have offered the chance for planning commission members to attend this conference. We have in our budget funds for 2 members of the planning commission to attend, if you'd like, if your work schedule permits you to go. It usually begins on a Sunday and ends on Tuesday. And this year it's April 13th through the 16th, which is a Saturday through Tuesday. And this year it's in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And so if there's some interest in that, please let me know, and I will certainly refer you to the details. The other point on that is there's also a remote login option that is available as well. So if your work schedule doesn't permit you to do that, there is the remote option as well. But it's a great conference because there's a lot of presentations from all over the country, and even some international presentations on planning and various topics. So it's a chance to meet true thought leaders in the field, and I always thought it was very worthwhile and productive. And there's sessions not only for staff planners, but there's also sessions for planning commission members and zoning board members as well. So you'll have sessions that are tailored towards your interests, whatever that might be.
Commissioner Grisay, so if a member of the planning commission had an interest in that, should they reach out to you directly?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, I think it's very worthwhile, and you'll also have a chance to network with other planning commissions.
Mhm.
So that's the first item. The next is that we are getting ready in our preparation for our next meeting in February, which is February 27th. And I think I mentioned this at our previous meeting. This will be an information joint session between the Planning Commission and both zoning boards. And this is another annual meeting where we just kind of a kickoff for the year to get the both zoning boards and the Planning Commission members together. We will serve a light dinner at 5:30 in the afternoon, and then begin the meeting at 6. And I tentatively we're looking at a program for about an hour and 15 minutes. So you'll be finished by 7:30. And we're still kind of fine tuning what that program might look like. I wanted to get some feedback from you in terms of some things that you might find interesting as well. But it's a good opportunity for training topics, things that are of interest to you that you'd like to find out more information on. And it's really a chance just to talk a little bit about the subdivision regulations as well, and kind of go through our expected plan for the next year, and then go through the accomplishments in the previous year. The zoning boards won't have a chance to look at this. On the planning commission, you'll see that, you'll hear that twice. So with that, I'd be happy to take any comments or questions you might have on that too.
Yeah, this is Commissioner Grisay. I think one thing that would be helpful for me is almost like an organizational structure of the kind of the county, as far as what type of, there's the Parks and Rec department, there's, just like what are the different zones of influence or kind of departments within the county? Just kind of and who is the person who's kind of in charge of those different parts would be helpful to me, just to kind of get a purview of all the things that the commission would help, could potentially offer suggestions for regulations upon.
Thank you, Commissioner. Great suggestion. We'd be happy to do that. One other item that's somewhat related, but I was going to mention, in addition to this annual meeting, where for the kind of a joint session, we also we've been calling it Infrastructure Night, where we will dedicate some time for presentations from the Parks and Recreation Department, wastewater, Public Works. Well, they can provide an update in their subject areas as well. So it's kind of a chance to talk about all things infrastructure, for example, that evening. I'd be happy to do that too.
Are there any other, Commissioner Grisay, are there any other kind of requested training topics that you guys would be interested in? I know the training session we did last year was really helpful. They kind of, I think Peg Trent presented and offered some kind of do's and don'ts, or kind of some places where commissioners from other cities, not this one, may have stubbed their toe a time or two inadvertently. So I thought that was helpful. But if there was anything else you guys had a request for. Okay, if you have any others, I think maybe just email the team, and they'll consider and add those to the list.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Is there any old business or new business any of the commissioners would like to raise at this point?
Madam Chair, it's Sean Penley. I was just asking Jay, we did talk about one of the things we'll mention. We won't need to set up the details tonight. But we will want to talk about for this zoning and subdivision regulations update. As part of that process, we'll want to have, I think Jay mentioned briefly, we'll have a steering committee or the subcommittee, just like we did with the airport compatibility plan update. So we don't know yet the exact composition of that, but what we would like to have is members of the planning commission and then some members from the zoning boards to participate in that. So we're working through, I think, the details of the subcommittee, but that's something we'll be coming back, and maybe we could even discuss that possibly at the joint meeting in February.
Yes, Madam Chair, Jay Leipzig, again, there'll be more to come on that. I haven't decided whether we'll do that in an email format to you, ask for your response. But yeah, if you have an interest in that, we would certainly need volunteers on that. I don't know the schedule of when that group will meet yet, but I assume it would be, if we're following the example of what we use for the airport compatibility plans, they will meet with staff, they'll meet with local developers, meet with a consultant, and then there'll probably be several meetings, variety of different topics. So it's a good way to take a deep dive into some of these topics, and we'll have more details with you to share later. I've been delaying that slightly just because I wanted to get the airport compatibility plans approved and get those before the board first. So that's kind of that first piece, and that if that happens in February, we'll probably have more of a formal plan to you in March. The next.
This is Kelly Rast. You can put my name down.
Ah,
For either planning commission or zoning board or both.
Thank you. Well, I think if that is all, then I guess we will have the fastest meeting on the books to date. If I could have a motion to adjourn.
Kelly
Greg Wolf,
Rast.
so moved.
Second, Kelly Rast.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Thank you, guys. See you in February.
Thanks you all very much for your time. Appreciate it.